taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ford Bronco Sport. And this is the smaller version of the screen. If you wanted one with the larger version, full digital, or part digital I should say, you'll find that walkthrough down in the description. But one thing to point out, the steering wheel isn't heated, but if you did have a heated steering wheel, it would just be right along the very bottom there in order to toggle it on. Steering wheel across the Bronco Sport lineup is going to be a manual telescoping. So there's a release just by your left knee there. Click that in order to lock it back into place. Stick on the left-hand side is going to be for your blinkers, for your high beams. Now, one thing you might notice is that the high beams aren't permanently locking out. So in order to lock them out, just by your left knee, you've got your switches there. You just have to get out of the auto mode. So going into one of the other modes, push away is going to let you permanently lock your high beams on there instead. So that's one thing to note, is that if your high beams aren't locking out, you just have to get out of the auto mode. You can also use the dimmer switch in order to increase or decrease the brightness of the little screen there on top of that. But let's go through what you need to know otherwise. So this has the optional Copilot 360 package, which is going to give you adaptive cruise control. You toggle the adaptive cruise on this way. It's a distance indicator, so how close or far away do you want to be from the vehicle in front of you. You can cancel it out. You can also press the brake to cancel, and then you can resume. Once you get up to the speed that you'd like, you can then increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. And if you ever get any messages on the screen, you can also push the OK button in order to get rid of them. This one's a lane centering system. So there's a lane centering system and then a lane keeping system. Two different systems. Lane keeping, if you start to veer over into a lane without signaling, it's either going to shake the steering wheel, nudge you back into your lane, or it'll do both. And that's all set up through the infotainment system. Lane centering is going to keep you perfectly balanced in your lane as you go. Not fully self-driving, but it is kind of neat the way that the system works. If you want a fuller walkthrough on how to actually use adaptive cruise, you'll find it down in the description of this video. You can also adjust your volume. You can mute out along the bottom right. And then on this side, you've also got a voice command prompt. So you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations, navigate using your voice as well. If you had your phone hooked up through whether that's an Android or an iPhone device, you can do a short press to get that message back up for your vehicle assistant, or you can do a longer press and hold in order to activate either Google or your Siri assistant. You can change between songs or radio stations. And then one nice thing is a preset option too. So let's say sources, if you're on FM, you could press this in order to jump between all of your different presets. But let's say if you're on AM, FM, whatever the case may be, you can also do a longer press and hold, and that's going to let you seek out that way instead. So you could seek out that way if you want to, change presets, or you could push the voice command prompt just to change out your radio station that way. And then there are a series of other buttons there in order to navigate through the cluster screen. I think one thing I missed is the right stock here. So this one, you're going to pull in towards you to get that front wiper fluid going. You're going to push away for the rear. You can adjust your speed there. And then there's a button on the tip of that stick in order to adjust your rear wiper as well. Inside of the cluster screen is nice and simple. One thing that I like is that there are a series of selectable GOAT modes, so go over any terrain. It's going to play with your traction control, stability control, shift points, and things like that. But if you look at sport mode, it just gives you a teeny little S along the top, versus sand mode. It's going to disable your traction control. You can see is now turned off there as well. So each mode does do something different. But along the left-hand side, you've got your tachometer. Right-hand side is a speedometer, what gear you're currently in, engine temperature, how much fuel you've got left. So I'm dangerously low right now. Whether or not your auto start-stop system is engaged or not. And then you've also got the adaptive cruise system, which you can toggle on or off there as well. You've also got your current road speed, direction the vehicle's facing, what drive mode you're in, outside temperature, and then you've got a series of other screens that you can navigate through using the pad on the right-hand side. So you can go up and down for different modes there. So a series of different options, basic information, trip counters, etc. So you could also press this button to go trip 1 counter, reset values, or configure. So let's say if you wanted to reset your value, trip, okay. And you can see there, values are reset, and that's reset your trip counter. So go back, and it zeroed everything out for us. Moving down into my view, you could show either the digital speedometer, fuel economy, or a calming screen instead. So it just shows kind of nothing there. I personally am a bigger fan of the digital speedometer because you can kind of work these things tandem. And if you're going down to the States or up to Canada, you can also have that in miles or kilometers per hour instead. And that's all adjusted through the infotainment system. Pushing through, you've also got a secondary view there, so driver assistance settings with no additional options. Navigation. If you have factory navigation, or I should say if you don't have factory nav, you're only going to have the compass, so the direction you're facing. But with factory navigation, you push the little menu button there, and you can look at home addresses, previous destinations, point of interest icons. So let's say if you wanted to go to something like a Tim Hortons.
Obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving.
So it's not a full
Please
mapping.
proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
Well, thank you. It's not a full mapping cluster, but it's still kind of nice that you've got those turn-by-turn directions. You can also cancel the route out if you want to, and then navigate back through for point of interest icons, so you can do full searches to see what's around you for food, fuel, ATMs, and things like that. Moving down, you've also got what source you're listening to. So AM, FM, Sirius XM. I've got a USB device plugged in there right now, so I could look at that. I could look at now playing, and that's just going to show you the song that you're currently playing. Actually, I'm curious. Changes songs as well. Cool. So you can change songs that way as well when you're connected to your USB. And then I wonder if you do press and hold, that's also going to seek. It is. Oh yeah. So it does skip forward as well. It's kind of neat. It's not much, but hold on. I got to show you this. So as I press and hold along the right side there, you can see that it's going to start seeking. So it's a slow seek. I think what's that, 3 seconds at a time that it's jumping up and down, a little bit faster. Yeah, there we go. So it's kind of nice that you can adjust songs out that way, and you can kind of go backwards, forwards on top of that. So if you wanted to, reset the song that way, which is kind of nice. And then from there, series of other options. So you can jump between AM, FM. So if you wanted to adjust stations out that way, you could. Jump between your different presets by going left, right. Down from there is your phone. So if you had a phone connected, you'd be able to make phone calls, look at missed calls, and things like that. But if you were hooked up over Bluetooth, you can also press the voice command prompt as well to make a phone call. If you're hooked up through Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, I also mentioned longer press and hold in order to activate either your Google or your Siri Assistant instead. I love that you've got that available, but it is a wired connection for Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. From there, you've got basic vehicle information. So you've got a seatbelt section. So number of passengers is going to show when more people are in the vehicle, whether or not they're plugged in or not. From there, whether or not the auto start stop system is engaged, so whether it's turned on or off. So with the system turned on, what's going to happen is when you come down to a complete stop, if you're stopped for an extended period of time, the engine may turn off before it fires back on again. Tire pressure, so you can see there, tire pressure is a teeny little bit off there. And then also the oil life reset. So if you're changing oil yourself, once you've changed, hop into the screen, and then you're just going to press and hold in order to reset your oil life. And then there's trailer light status. So if you had a trailer connected, it would let you know whether or not those lights are working properly. And in the Bronco, you've only got the 4 pins, so you don't have the option for the 7 pin as well. I think that's it. Back to the beginning there. So inside of this little one, you don't have quite as many options. It's nice though at the same time, but that's everything that you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the little cluster screen inside of the Ford Bronco Sport.